Nick, let's also just real quickly mention we've talked about how it affects us as humans and children, but let's mention the effects on the environment, okay? Because I saw a video, I think on YouTube, that was showing like little blades of grass and some cells in a petri dish, and they were exposing it to the erratic pulses of microwave radiation. And like as you mentioned, it's not necessarily the power of the electrical current that does the damage. It's the erratic, unnatural, never seen before, unpredictable frequency of like when the pulses hit that does the damage. And in this video, it actually showed, because again, this is so tricky because we can't see this is happening, but when you see in the video, it really, I'll never forget it. So it was blasting the frequencies, and it would show the little amoebas in the petri dish and the blades of grass literally jump. Every time they got a shot, they would physically move and react to it like, oh my God, it was like someone walks in the room and scares you, and you know how you jump? That was the reaction of these little creatures. And this is what's happening all the time in our planet, to nature, to the grass, to the trees, the birds. So tell us about how it's affecting the environment, please.
Yeah, it's very bizarre for the environment. What is bizarre is how blinded the environmental organizations are to that problem. Some of them are not, and I saw a few organizations mention 5G as an emerging threat to pollinators and birds, but they don't recognize that, yeah, well, maybe you can say 5G is an emerging threat, but what about 4G and 3G and 2G and all the rest? And they don't understand fully. But in reality, when you look at the science,
it's already happening. It's already,
yeah, well,
the
exactly.
migration patterns and
so we know, okay, so here's what we know: it's bad. So the environment is messed up. So we know that the migratory birds, the insect populations have dropped, the bees are disappearing. So we know we're in deep trouble. And then people can say, oh, it's climate change. Oh no, it's heating up. No, it's colder. And okay, I don't care for these things, to be honest. Are we impacting the planet? Yes. What factors are impacting the environment? It's a big question. Is it more of the glyphosate, or is it other toxins, or is it? But electromagnetic pollution is there in the factors, except again, it's the most often overlooked one. It's almost 100% of the time ignored. So it's a blind side to the science. And when you look at reviews, big meta reviews of studies looking at, okay, is there an effect on biology? And they include effects to trees and plants, pollinators and bees and migratory birds. And it's a resounding yes. And it's in one Indian review, for example, it was basically 66% of all studies out of 919, if I recall correctly. That's a 2013 in the Indian review that showed effect, negative impact. So it's not like there's a handful of studies showing impact. It's the majority of studies showing impact to nature that is negative. So because of that, I really don't understand why the environmentalists are not taking action on this. But again, I think they're stuck in the same cycle, in the same no effect. We're gonna listen to the FCC, but the FCC is captured, so nothing moves. So they're each waiting on each other to do something about it. And is it credible? And we're gonna wait for more studies. And then there's some countries that are taking more action than others on this, and sometimes for the environment and sometimes for people. And just an example is India. I mean, in the US and Canada, some people still think, I think still have this idea that oh, it's an emerging country. And I think we're less talking in these terms. It's kind of scoffing at, oh, we're the best countries in the world, we're Western world society. But in reality, India has woken up to the fact that these towers are too close to kindergartens and hospitals and schools, and has started in 2000 12, if I recall correctly, dismantling towers that were too close to people in one of their largest provinces, and then moving them away, which is what we should be doing actively at the moment, trying to get the towers away from people. Of course, they're going to still be close to nature, so we're not solving the problem by any means. But the effects on nature are, unfortunately, it's a big black box, I would say, because we don't know what's inside. We know that nature is messed up, and we know that the electromagnetic pollution can cause impacts to nature, and there's enough data to show that it probably disrupts the migratory patterns of birds. They get confused, probably disrupts honeybees, and might be some researchers who are investigating colony collapse disorder think that it's one of the root causes. Other researchers don't agree, but at least it's there. I think it's in the discussion a little bit, but what do we do about it is another question, because if the mere presence of cell towers is enough to kill honeybees or disrupt the populations the way it did, if it's one of the root causes, then I don't know how we're going to solve this, to be quite honest, because it means we're going to have to reduce the radiation tremendously or raise honeybees in radio silent zones, which
Put them in a Faraday cage.
yes, or there's in I think it's West Virginia, Greenbanks, if I recall correctly, there's a radio silent zones because there's a major space observatory there, and they need to read the natural radio waves or microwaves from space. So there's no cell phones, there's no cell phone towers, and many people who suffer from electro hypersensitivity live there. There's nothing there. So you have a natural setting, almost ancestral levels of radiation there. So we could study maybe the honeybees there, and many research projects are being done, but there's not a lot of money poured in studying the phenomenon and trying to investigate. But for sure, if there were a direct link between the reduction of honeybees and this electromagnetic pollution, then I think it could get even more attention than with humans, it seems, because we're talking about extinction level events at the moment that I hope I won't see. But the reality is that we're struggling at the moment with the bees population to just have to just produce almonds. I mean, I saw documentaries where they have to bring the bees to the almond trees, right, in California, and then they bring them back. They kind of we're manually pollinating now. So, and then some biotech geeks are thinking about miniature robots that will replace the bees, and all sorts of crazy ideas are going on. But why? Because we're in trouble for food production. So it's again, it's difficult to pinpoint how much of an impact it's having. For sure, it's having an impact. How much is up to debate, but it's oftentimes ignored. So I have a problem when there's safety signals there that say, oh, humans might be in trouble. And if humans are in trouble from this radiation, all of biology can be in trouble.
Of course.
So we should at least consider it. And another thing, bacteria might be in trouble, right? Healthy bacteria, but also the pathogenic bacteria or even fungi might cause us more trouble when exposed to radiation. And there's a set of 2 studies by the Tahiri group, Taheri. I think it might be from Middle East, and they looked at the impact of a Wi-Fi router and cell phones on certain strains of E. coli and Listeria that oftentimes are the root cause killers of antibiotic resistant infections in hospital settings. So they're looking at that to save lives, because it's a huge issue that people get in the hospital, they feel fine, and maybe they have a minor wound, and okay, you can go back home, but then in the hospital setting you catch something, but that something is antibiotic resistant. So now you can stay in the hospital with an infection and die from a minor cut. So it's very dangerous. And what they found is that the E. coli, for example, over time exposure, being exposed to Wi-Fi routers that are commonly found in hospitals, by the way, now, including all the equipment that's now wireless, it will become more antibiotic resistant as it will evolve in a direction to protect itself. So as a mechanism of maybe stress response to Wi-Fi routers or other electromagnetic pollution source, they will become more antibiotic resistant. So it makes you really think that these sets of studies have not led to change in policy or things like that, but it makes you think, oh my God, what else is out there about the impact on the human microbiome, and how it might play a role in why is it that everyone has so much gut dysbiosis, including the glyphosate and everything else, but electromagnetic
Well, we
pollution
are
might.
bacteria. That's what
Yeah,
we are. I
exactly.
mean, we're more
So
bacteria than.
we could talk about cancer all day, but in reality, cancer is decades down the road. So what about the impact on gut microbiota when we know that it can make or break your health nowadays? And we know that there's poop transplant now that is working tremendously to bring people back to life, literally. So what is it doing to normal bacteria? I don't know, and there's not a lot of data on gut bacteria, and hopefully there's going to be more in the future, but it's probably not good because it's unnatural. So chances are it's harming us. Chances are it's neutral. I hope for that, but there's no way it's harmless for sure.